It's almost like we thought this through.
Don't record the fuck.
You know how you said this is simple and easy?
Yep.
I'm not believing you anymore.
I think you've used the wrong size.
Now, depending which parts of these videos I use, because we're now on day 3 of filming, and you may notice I am more tanned, got shorter hair, very different clothes. It's been many weeks. I've been flying with a single wing with Mylar. We might use the footage of me attempting to do this the first time round, or we might just show you how to do it properly the first time round.
Welcome back to the NavBoys workshop for another NavBoys tutorial video. In this one, we're going to be looking at how to apply Mylar to a wing. Dorian, why would you want to apply Mylar to a wing?
For performance?
Yep. Any other reasons?
Stop bugs getting in?
I guess. Wouldn't have been one that I'd have chosen.
It's something to do with the airflow, isn't it? So the airflow doesn't get sucked in behind and cause turbulence.
Yeah, so it's one of the biggest ways that you can improve the performance of your glider is basically to seal and cover any gaps. And one of the most obvious gaps on your wings are the ailerons, where the ailerons meet the wings, and where your flaps meet the wings if you've got flaps. So in this video, we're going to show you how to identify which type of Mylar you need for your wing, what parts you're going to need, what tools you're going to need, and we're going to look a little bit at the procedure for carrying it out. We've got, starting over here, we've got just a rag, doesn't need to be too clean. That's for removing the adhesive residue. We've got a couple of different solvents that we recommend. Cleaner 191, just be a bit careful, it's got acetone in, so make sure you don't use it near any cellulose paint, otherwise you'll take the cellulose paint off. One slightly less aggressive is Industry Cleaner, which we recommend. We've got a clean microfiber cloth, and that we use for applying the Mylar and applying the tapes onto the wing. We've got a heat gun in case removing the old Mylar gets a bit difficult. We can use a little bit of heat just to help soften the adhesive. We've got what I call a whiz wheel, but what everyone else calls a stripe off tool, and that we use in a electric drill, and that helps to get to remove really stubborn adhesive. Really useful tool. Then we've got the Mylar. So Mylar itself is a very thin plastic-like material, and you can just about see it's got a curve to it. This is pre-curved Mylar. It usually will come on a roll, and it's generally sold by the meter, so you need to measure up how much you need for your control surfaces. Bear in mind it could be top and bottom.
And also the rudder, and also the elevator.
There's so many things to seal. That's the Mylar, and they come in different widths as well, so we're going to show you how to identify which width you need.
They also come flat, I know.
Yes, you can also get flat Mylar. It tends to be less popular on the older gliders, more popular on newer gliders, but if in doubt, either look at the old Mylar that was on the glider or look at the maintenance manual. It should tell you what you need. In addition to the Mylar, we're going to need something to stick the Mylar down. That's the double-sided adhesive. You can see it's red in colour. That's just the backing paper. As soon as you take off the backing, it will go clear. Then we've got capping tape. That basically seals and sticks down the leading edge of the Mylar, stops it lifting up with air, UV, moisture, just seals the leading edge. And then we've also got glass-backed Teflon tape. This you can use on certain gliders where the hinge is on one side of the control surface. Generally, you can only use this on the hinge side. You need to be sure that you can use it on your glider, and usually you find that out from the maintenance manual or the manufacturer. But this, effectively, you'll use this as a seal between the control surface and the trailing edge of the wing. So this is the actual physical seal, stops the air leaking through the control surface. It also has a Teflon finish, which reduces the friction when the Mylar is sliding over it. Okay, looking at the tailplane here, this one's already got Mylar, so that helps us with two jobs here. Firstly, we can tell what size Mylar we need to replace it with, assuming that this Mylar's been working fine and it's not been restricting the control surfaces in any way. We know the exact width that we need to replace it with, which is handy. The other thing you can see on this Mylar over time and UV degradation, it started to lift at the trailing edge, and you can see as you deflect the elevator down, it's not staying in contact with the control surface, and ideally you want it to always stay in contact with the control surface where possible. To remove this, really quite simple. You can just peel it away.
Kind of hurts to watch.
It just comes up like so. On most finishes, I tend to try and peel it back along itself so that you're not pulling up on the paint or the gel coat. And also sometimes, like maybe in this case actually, the capping tape started to
Deteriorate as well.
Deteriorate and crack. So it probably helped to get a little bit of heat from the heat gun. That hopefully helps soften the adhesive a bit.
Okay. Let's grab a heat gun. I found a heat gun. It's over there. It's handy.
I came prepared.
It's almost like we thought this through. Almost.
Almost, yeah.
Now imagine if somebody actually hard waxed this instead of hard waxing everything but this.
Imagine how white it would look.
How shiny.
You want to do the honours?
Yeah, go on. I'll burn my own wing tail.
So the important thing with the heat is just keep the heat gun moving. Don't keep it concentrated in one place. You want the wing surface to get warm but not hot.
So if it's melting like that, it's probably fine, yeah?
That's probably all you need. And then just start peeling the tape up. And there you go, it's coming off in a nice continuous strip now. Okay. So just keep the heat running as you're peeling it off.
Should we get the stupid glasses so people can see what I'm doing?
Yep.
Thank you. This is the look.
Looking smart.
Oh, thank you. Right, so you can probably see that on camera, but sticky stuff there. See it from my finger anyway. No sticky stuff.
Let's get it further on the trestles,
just
so it's a bit more stable. And because it's a tailplane and there's not much weight to it, I'd recommend doing this with 2 people. Okay. And I would consider or use this in a very similar way as the hard wax mop in the previous video.
Okay.
We're going to use the drill on a slow speed, just in drill setting, not hammer drill.
Okay. And for those people who haven't watched our video, even though they should have, how did we use the mop?
So making sure that the direction that the tool is spinning, in this case the whiz wheel, making sure that it's always running off the trailing edge or along it, but definitely not going to try and catch it or lift it up, and vice versa. Any discontinuities along the wing, like this control surface cutout, just making sure it's not going to get caught. So what we're going to do is, if you brace the wing door in, and then I'm also going to keep it moving, not keep it in one place at any one time.
I'd like to point out to the viewers that I have told him where the cameras are, but he still insists on standing right in front of them.
I have to for that bit. Right, I'll let you do the rest.
Thanks.
So get a feel for it first, just coming along here. You're trying to keep it as flat as possible. Just be careful because it will rock. So just be conscious of where you're putting that. You don't want to put that over your elevator. I'd probably actually orientate it
like that.
Like that, and trying to keep that clear, or keep it really high like that.
Okay, I'll go really high because I think otherwise it's going to not work.
Solvents. And I usually recommend to people, when you're using solvents, try the less aggressive solvent first, and then if you have to up the ante.
And this is your favourite spray, isn't it?
It's good for removing any sort of adhesive residue, general wing tape residue, even light residue like this. Should be pretty good for. Let's see.
He's being very calm about this, but he does absolutely love this stuff.
I like the smell.
It's a very nice smell.
I think it's a really useful thing to have in your glider toolbox for probably using 3 or 4 times a season, just to get all the old adhesive residue off from your wing tape.
And if we figure out shipping, you'll be able to buy this on the Knife Boys store as well. But that's if we sort out the shipping.
If we can sort out some hazardous goods shipping.
I did expect this to be a much more of a pig of a job than it is so far appearing to be.
The power tool really helps. I think before we discovered the use of those stripe-off wheels, it did used to take ages if you're just doing this with solvents. So in this case, if you can't get the information from the manufacturer to work out what size Mylar you need on your wing, the first thing I'd look for is the biggest cutout or the biggest obstruction on the control surface. So on this aileron, you can see it's got these small cutouts here where the hinges are, but more importantly than that, it's got this large cutout here, which is where the aileron linkage connects up. When you come to sizing up your Mylar, you need to make sure that once that's laid on the trailing edge of the wing here, that there's no chance of this fouling the aileron and obstructing its movement. So that could sink into that gap, and worst case, it could obstruct the control surfaces. So that's a danger risk. So as a result, that size of Mylar is too small. This one's the next size up, and you can see that at full deflection, it's not going to fall into that gap and obstruct the control surface. So that's a good size. And generally, I'd recommend you try and use the smallest size you can get away with. That generally gives you a nicer sealing. So this is a bigger size. And again, you can see that will work. There's no problem with it, but it has a bigger gap at the back where it folds over. So if you can get away with a smaller size, I always recommend it. It will just fit nicer and be a bit more aerodynamic. What we've done there is we've decided that we want the 38mm Mylar, and ideally you can see that that's curved. So ideally you want the middle of that curve to be close to the middle of the basically the hinge line of the control surface. So if you use very, very small adhesive, you'd find that this sits too far back, and then you can't get the trailing edge to sit nicely on the aileron. So you want a decent sized double-sided adhesive that will sit that in about the right position. Of course, making sure that it's not going to obstruct control surface. So for this one, we've measured that we want about 12mm double-sided adhesive. So that's 12mm width there. That will stick down there. And then the 38mm Mylar sticks to that. And then to go over that adhesive line, leading edge of the Mylar will be in line with the leading edge of this double-sided adhesive. And then I usually recommend a width of capping tape that covers that nicely with at least 5mm overlap in front of the leading edge of the Mylar. So this is 25mm, and that's plenty.
Now, the last time I tried this, I had a look at Jake having a go, and Jake has been doing this for a long time. So when he was applying the double-sided tape, he did a lovely, clean, straight line. And I tried that too, and it didn't work. So I found the best thing that I can do is I can use one of these. You use it as you would use string. Stick it to one end, pull it across, pull it tight, and lay it down. And that gives you a nice straight line that you can apply all of your things to. What also helps is making sure you definitely have the right tape. Last time we had a pile of tapes, and it meant I kept picking up the wrong one, so don't do that to yourself. Once you've figured out what tape you have, put it in a single place and get rid of all the other tapes. You've put the tape into the pile of tapes. Because, hang on, get the shot of all the tapes here. So yeah, you just do that, Dorian. I'll just put the tape that we need into this pile of tapes. None of them are labelled. Not a single one is labelled. Just figure out, in front of the camera, which one we need.
I think I used the wrong double-sided adhesive on this.
When you say you use the wrong one, you use the one that's too thin.
Too wide, I think. The Mylar,
Yeah.
the middle of the Mylar should be roughly in line with the middle of the hinge.
Yeah.
That's just a little bit forward. Don't record the up. Oh, no. Now we're in trouble.
So we're going to have to whisk wheel it again.
Hang on, no, we'll just get the heat on it, it'll be fine. Why are you still recording?
We are going to be selling, or once this video is up, we will be selling a kit so you can buy different tapes, of different sizes. Just a small little cut-off, basically. And you can just get that as a kit and make sure that the tape you want to buy is the right size, and that'll make your life a lot easier as well. The great thing about masking tape, if I speak between rips, is that you can apply it many times. So last time, what I figured out is if you put this where you want it, and if you give yourself a little bit of margin from the edge, because I don't know if Jake can film this if he gets it nice and close, but the aileron looks straight. However, if you really pay attention, this is a bit higher than this, and there's a nice little curve down on this end because this was made by people, well, by people, not robots, so it's not entirely straight. So if you give yourself a bit of margin, it tends to work a little bit better. I'm not gonna tell you how many times I've tried to do this.
Practice makes perfect.
It's very embarrassing if it
There's
now
been
goes
plenty of
very
practice.
wrong. There's been loads of practice.
Worst case, we might have to
Do it all over again.
Do all this again, but at least we've had plenty of practice.
So, some margin there. Magical. And now, a straight line. Well, there or thereabouts.
Straighter than the aileron.
What Jake isn't showing you is that I am leaving a bit of excess because I can cut it off later. And the other thing that Jake has shown me, which the first time around I didn't learn very well, and I had to take this off multiple times, is don't push down on the tape. Just apply it gently, and you can push it down later. Because if you f it up like I am already doing it, if you mess it up like I am already doing it, it's a lot easier to take off tape that isn't on very well. Otherwise, you have to get out the rubber wheel, and you have to take the entire thing off using the rubber wheel. If you haven't got a rubber wheel, get a rubber wheel. This has already not gone well. So, actually, it might be worth showing why it hasn't gone well. So despite the fact that I left margin on both ends of the wing, you can still see that here, it's got come a lot closer. It's actually gone over the edge. So there's margin there. See, there's margin there. There's margin at the other end, which you can't see because there's no tape. And even despite that, there's not enough space. So now I have to take this tape off. And if I pushed it down, it'd be a rubber wheel job. But there you go, that aileron looks straight, and now Jake can probably show you that end has a much smaller gap than this end. I can stick my entire thumb in between these two. It's going to be now perfect, isn't it? Yeah, of course it is. But only half a thumb in the middle. I would quite happily say that this is harder than hard waxing.
Yeah?
Yeah. Rewiring a panel is less fiddly than this. It's more work, but less fiddly than this.
Imagine doing it on an Ash 25, top and bottom.
I don't think I want to.
It will literally take a week.
If you have an Ash 25 and want to get Mylar done on it, so I've pulled this back a little bit. You can see the aileron finishes there. I'm just pulling it back a little bit further than that. That will be where the Mylar itself cannot sit over the edge here. So if it's a bit further back, that's fine. You just use the capping tape at the end to the word that I'm missing.
See that?
That's the one.
There's no downside to having the double-sided adhesive too long, because that would just get covered in capping tape anyway.
Okay. It's cool. Look at the gap here. Huge. But then you look at it and you can see there's definitely like a curve going down.
Look how straight it looks now.
Yeah, don't make the mistake I did. Keep the masking tape there because the Mylar is going to be sitting right on the edge of the double-sided tape on this end. And I'm gonna probably just make sure all along the edge that it will definitely go over. So here, it looks good. Here is the most important bit. That also looks nice and tight. So I am quite happy with where the double-sided tape is. And if you're not, rip it off and do it again.
You can see there's still plenty of air bubbles underneath.
Yep.
So it would be very easy for you to take off if you had to do it again.
But I have a bit of cloth.
So you can see Dorian's cutting a bit extra to make his life easy.
Yep.
Just an inch or two. And he's taped this side to make sure it doesn't fall on the floor. That is a classic newbie mistake. So I usually would cut this end nice and square
Before
and
you
then
put it down.
put this end straight onto the corner of the double-sided.
That is an idea, isn't it?
And then you'll always have a bit of slack in the Mylar that you can then pull.
Where was this advice when I was doing this last time?
I think it was 6 o'clock in the morning last time, and it just
So was it
my
there?
brain hadn't woken up. So you do a nice square cut,
Yeah.
and then you're going to put that straight on the corner of that
Is that square?
double-sided.
Pretend that's square. You didn't see or hear that.
And then just keep that tension on with your right hand. Keep it perfectly straight with that leading edge. So you can see when Dorian's applying the Mylar, he's keeping a lot of tension in his right hand here, keeping the Mylar quite low, and then pushing it onto the double-sided adhesive with his left hand.
Yeah. And this is the scary part because we're almost at the halfway point.
When it goes well, you can see it sits down nicely with no kinks.
This is where you usually have a jump cutter going horribly wrong. So just what? How do I fix the kink?
Do you want to swap?
Yeah.
See if I can recover it.
Just like that, first time round, no issues whatsoever.
Beauty.
We have Mylar.
Bit of trimming to do.
There's trimming to do. Oh, not so obviously, this bit end also needs to be cut off. So you can see now at full deflection, the Mylar isn't coming down because it is getting stuck on the bit of the wing that isn't Mylar.
Bit of trimming to do here.
Bit of trimming to do here. And you are a believer in razor blades, aren't you?
Yes, so if you're very patient and careful, you can use a straight rule and a scalpel or a blade and just very, very carefully cut through. You just got to be careful not to go through the gel coat or the paint of your wing.
You're going for the gel.
So
Yeah.
I tend to just cut it until you can basically pull the end away with your fingernails rather than go all the way through with the blade.
Is there a chance I could get one that's not blunt?
Now you're asking too much.
There we go. Now it should sit flush. Yes, it does. It's almost straight as well. There you go. That's how Mylar works. You can now see that at full deflection. There is a bit of a gap in some places, not all of them.
But this is at max deflection.
But this is
so
max deflection, yeah.
your glider won't actually do this while it's rigged. Once the controls are hooked up, it won't deflect that far anyway.
And then on full up.
It sits nicely. At this point, I wouldn't flex it too much. Once the capping tape's down, you need to give it a really good rub with a cloth, and then it's properly stuck down and it's not going anywhere. The trailing edge of your capping tape is in line with the trailing edge of the double-sided adhesive. Yes, good.
Yes.
That's good.
I'll do the same thing on the other side.
And then you're aligning the leading edge with the masking tape to give you a nice straight line.
It's quite forgiving, I find, the capping tape, unlike the other two tapes.
Yep.
Which is great, because by this point, your nerves might be shot.
This is the final rub.
Ta-da! And just like that, in an hour, you managed to do one of the 4 wing surfaces if you don't have flaps.
Yay! So a full day,
Yeah.
and you could do a full glider. And especially if you're going to put on Teflon tape,
Oh yes,
which we'll come to next.
yeah, right now. This is glass back Teflon tape, and it is used on surfaces that have a hinge. So Labels, being a superior design and the best glider in the world, they have a center pivot, so I can use Mylar on both sides. Terrible gliders like the ASW20, they have a hinge on one side, which you can see here, which means that you can actually have one side that compresses, and that's where you use a bit of tape like this. Now, I sound very confident, but I have no idea how to do it, so I'm going to hand over to Jake. He's going to show you how to use glass back Teflon tape, because I don't need to know, because I've got a superior glider.
You also have no idea how good the 20 is. You just wait until you fly one. Glass back Teflon tape is used to form a seal. So that's basically going to form an aerodynamic seal between the top and bottom surface. It can be used in place of fabric tape, so some people prefer to use it over fabric tape. It's brown in colour, but what you'll find is as it gets exposed to UV over time, within a year or two, that will start to go clear. For sizing it, again, if the manufacturer haven't given you any details on what size tapes you need to use, you're going to have to work it out for yourself. On this one, the glass-backed Teflon seal is going to bridge the gap. It's going to have a little bit of excess pushed into that gap to make sure that it doesn't restrict the control surfaces, just like you'd do for fabric tape. And then the double-sided adhesive is going to sit just in front of that, and then the Mylar sticks down to the double-sided adhesive and slides over the Teflon. So once that Teflon tape's in position, you ideally want the Mylar to always rub on the Teflon and not rub on the control surface. So you need a glass back, or you need Teflon tape that's wide enough to bridge the gap, stick a decent amount here, and also stop the Mylar rubbing the wing or the surface of the control surface.
So is the double-sided tape going on top of the Teflon, on top of the ridge here?
It will go, if we can get the right size, it might just go in front of this bit of Teflon tape, but sometimes on some gliders I have seen the double-sided adhesive goes on top of the Teflon tape. So the Teflon tape will go down first, double-sided adhesive, then Mylar, then capping tape. The important thing is whenever you're doing fabric tape, or in this case Teflon tape, is making sure that the control surface is fully deflected. That's the first thing. Always best to make sure you've got a little bit too much than too little.
How do you know if you have a bit of Teflon that's too wide?
There's not a huge amount of there's not much disadvantage to having it too wide. Really the only disadvantage is an aesthetic thing. So if we were to use that, you can see that you'd end up with a lot more of the brown tape sitting along the elevator. No downside to it, it's just an aesthetic thing. As usual, make sure the control surface is nice and clean. This one I'm just doing for demonstration purposes, so it's not as clean as I'd normally get it. But make sure it's clean, make sure the adhesive residue has been taken out. This glider as well, it's got a Mylar recessed. It's got a Mylar recess in the elevator and in the ailerons. If your glider has this, that's quite handy for getting you a nice straight line. You don't need to worry about trying to get a straight line because that's done for you. Another top tip is to rub a little bit of lubricating oil on just with your finger, just on the hinge. And that will make sure that when this tape is stuck down, it's not going to obstruct the movement of the hinges.
Which we're not going to do.
They don't know that. And then to stick it down, the double-sided adhesive that I'm using on this one is 9mm. So I'm going to leave about a 9mm gap, which means I need about 5-6mm overlap. So 5 or 6mm is going to stick on this side, and I'm basically aiming to keep it as parallel as I can with that cutout, that Mylar recess. And I'm just at the moment pushing down the tailplane side, not the elevator, not into the hinge yet. This tape is quite forgiving. It doesn't stick down really, really hard unless you rub it down and leave it for some time. So you can lift it up quite easily. What I've done so far is I've just stuck it down to the trailing edge of the tailplane. I haven't rubbed it down on the elevator yet, and I haven't pushed it into the hinge. So the next job is to make sure it doesn't stick to the elevator. So just lifting it up a little bit, and I just tend to use my thumb to just push a little bit of excess into the hinge. And the purpose of this is to make absolutely sure the tape is never restricting the travel of the control surface. You want to try and keep that excess that you're pushing into the hinge fairly even along the control surface.
So that probably is a bit of a better seal than just Mylar on its own.
Yes, It's a better aerodynamic seal. It's a better physical seal, but you can only do it if you've got a hinge on one side, and even on certain gliders you can't do it because of the amount that the control surface moves.
It basically has to be on the pivot point.
Yeah, it's got to be on the pivot point, and there's got to be not be a huge amount of deflection.
So it has to be an inferior design, unlike the Lebel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was designed in the 20s. They didn't. I don't think Mylar seals were out, and when the 20s were out, I think they were aluminium seals or something like that back then.
Okay.
So when you do it really nicely,
It doesn't look like that.
you shouldn't get any creases in it, apart from around the hinges. I tend to push all the excess into the hinge.
That's smart.
The error was not putting oil in here, and also just not putting a skim of oil just on the corners here. So it just sticks before you get to push all the excess into the hinge.
Okay. What oil would you use?
Just a thin lubricating oil. We use Aeroshell 3, I think is the code, but just any sort of thin, decent quality, preferably aviation grade lubricating oil.
Okay. And now it just goes the same way that Mylar goes. Double-sided tape and then the Mylar on top.
Yeah, so next stage, double-sided tape, Mylar, capping tape, and you're done. Got a nicely sealed elevator. And as with any sort of control surface, always check you've got full and free movement, no obstructions. That sticking sound, that's quite normal, and if we had oil in there, you probably wouldn't even hear it, but it is quite normal, and as the tape ages, that will go. And whenever you do any control surface sealing, you've always got to do a full deflections check after to make sure that the control deflections are still within the required limits.
That's how you Mylar wings and tailplanes and everything else on gliders. As you can tell, it's not the easiest of processes, but well, it is easy. It's just fiddly and takes quite a long time to get right. And it took me quite a few goes to get right for the first time. So having some help does help, but providing you're more patient than I am, it should work quite a lot better than it did for me.
And make sure you order plenty of extra tape as well and extra Mylar so that you've got a second attempt at doing some of it.
Yeah, definitely. There's more videos to come, so let us know in the comments what videos you'd like to see, what you like about these videos, what you dislike about these videos. We have a few more coming up. We're going to do some fabric taping. The ASW20, that's going to come off because it's not finished yet, but we're doing a restoration project on that, so we'll try and show you what we've done to it over the course of its time with us. We haven't got any other videos past that planned, so just let us know what you want to see.
Yeah, video on V-seals, but yeah, let us know what else you'd like to see, and we'll try and make it happen. I think it's gone. It's a lost cause. It's staying forever. It's staying there forever. Fortunately, it's going under capping tape, so no one will see it.
It's not.
What not to do?
You can probably see it in daylight.
No one would ever know. If you can't see it in a workshop, you definitely won't see it in the sun. That's actually true. That is a NAV Boys Workshop fact. But don't worry, I'll be sure to point it out at the airfield.
Thank you. Thank you.